Thank you, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, everyone. My name is Zachary Hellinger. I'm with the American Red Cross, and today I'm going to be teaching you about the Pillowcase project. So, one of the important things about the Pillowcase project is really the steps for it are learning. We're going to teach you about it, teach you how to prepare for like home fire safety, and then we want you to go home and when you're home, make sure that you practice these. Make sure that you practice your escape plans and then share it with your family members and loved ones. So then what we teach you today, you can use and teach other people it too. So I know there is the Q&A function. So can anybody tell me in the Q&A, what are some things that the Red Cross does or that the Red Cross helps with? Blood drives, other people in need. Yep. CPR. Yep. Helps people who are hurt. We can teach people first aid. Yep. Exactly. You can donate blood. Fire safety. Volunteering to help with disasters. Yep. We can deploy in a bunch of different positions. Food drives. Yeah. We usually help. We partner with local food pantries and we can help with some food drives, disaster relief. Yep. The feeds people. We teach lifeguarding. Wow, you all know a lot about the Red Cross. That's amazing. Yeah, babysitting helps with houses and fires. Yeah, if there's ever like a fire, then we have a disaster action team that we can send out, help people who get hurt, health, help during natural disasters, babysitter class. Yep, money. Yeah, we can sometimes offer financial assistance with when people experience home fires. Perfect. All right. So we got a lot on there. So that was good. I'm really glad everyone knows a lot of what the Red Cross does. Covered basically all of them. Yeah, we help out a lot with that. I saw someone else put helps with the military. We have our services to armed forces. And then we have this program, which is in our area of disaster preparedness, where we teach people. Yep, I see one person put teach people what to do in case of a medical emergency. Yeah, or what to do during any kind of an emergency and helping like during floods. If there's a big flood in an area, sometimes we'll send out a bunch of volunteers so they can help clean up, do some damage assessment. So yeah, so the American Red Cross, we help out with a lot of different things. So with this program, the Pillowcase Project, this is one of our disaster preparedness programs. This actually got started a little while back when Hurricane Katrina hit, and down in the South, there were a bunch of college kids who had shown up to a Red Cross shelter. But because they didn't really know what to do and how to prepare, what they ended up doing is they showed up to the Red Cross shelter with all their belongings in a pillowcase. So the Red Cross workers at the shelter thought that that was a really good idea. So this project was made. So this project is going to teach you, the Pillowcase project is going to basically teach you how to respond, like if there's like a home fire, how to prepare for it, and then how to make your own pillowcases at home in case you need to quick get up and go. All right. So first thing we'll go over is home fire preparedness. So one of the big things with preparedness is your smoke alarms. You always want to make sure that you test your smoke alarms at least once a month. And then if you don't have a 10-year lithium battery one, then you want to make sure that you change the batteries in your smoke alarms every 6 months or so. Usually we say around daylight savings time, because it's a big event that people can kind of remember that happens usually halfway through the year, every 6 months. But if there's like a bigger event that like about that's 6 months into the year, happens twice a year, then you can do it on really any of those dates as long as they end up getting changed. And also with the smoke alarms, what you want to make sure is that they're not expired either. Usually we say that smoke alarms, they not that they kind of go bad, but they start to get a little bit faulty and dysfunctional, kind of like an old video game. So after 10 years, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get a new smoke alarm. And whether it's the 10-year lithium battery one or whichever one, after 10 years, they usually start to get a little faulty. So you want to make sure that you get a new one. And when you're installing a new one, make sure that it's never you doing that. As you see in the picture, the adult is the one on the ladder. We want to make sure that you're all being safe. So when you have to get a new smoke alarm and install it, make sure that it's an adult or grown up that will do that. And okay. And if you have any questions while I'm talking, you can put them in the chat and I can either answer them as I go or I can answer them at the end. So another very important part about home fire safety is making sure you have a home fire escape plan. With that, as you can see on the little map they have there are 2 escape paths. You want to make sure that you have 2 just in case, because you always want to have a backup plan. So when you're making this escape plan, you want to make sure you look at your house and be able to find 2 different exits. So we went over the smoke alarm part already. So along with that, making sure that you have 2 different escape paths that you practice and go over with your family and loved ones, you also want to make sure that you have a meeting place. If, say, something were to happen and you had to get out of the house quick, you want to make sure you have that one designated spot that everyone can go to. So then, say, if something were to happen, then everyone, you can go outside, say like in the picture, like it's a tree that's like across the road. You go there and then you see everyone else is going there. And it's just to make sure that you can kind of keep track of everyone and make sure that everyone else is safe too. So with that, once you get your meeting place, once you make those 2 escape paths, what you're going to do is you want to practice it. So you want to be able to memorize those routes and practice them enough so if something were to happen, you could get up and go real quick. Because if a home fire were to happen, you have 2 minutes or less to get out. So that means you want to make sure that you can get out within 2 minutes. So that's why you want to practice that escape plan. Because I mean, doing it the first time, when I did it the first time with my grown-ups growing up, it did not take just 2 minutes. It took us 5 to 10 minutes to just figure out our exact escape paths and where we were meeting up. So that's why you want to practice this. You want to make sure that you can practice it until you can get out in 2 minutes or less. And when you're practicing this, you also want to make sure that you get low and go. You want to make sure that you get low and go because, you know, smoke rises. So you want to make sure that when you're getting out of the house, you're getting out quickly, but you're still underneath that smoke, so you're kind of not hurting your throat or anything. And then once you get out, we want you to stay out. We know sometimes it can be very tempting. Maybe you left your Xbox inside, you know, maybe there's a pet, but we want to make sure that your safety is the most important consideration. So say like if there is something like a pet inside still, then talk to the firefighters. They're the ones who are trained to go inside there and take care of stuff. You, however, are not. So we want to make sure that you're safe. So once you get out of the house, you want to make sure that you stay out of the house. Okay. So I see we have quite a few questions. So I'm going to go to just the next slide, and then I'll take a second to pause and answer some of them. There we go. Okay, so breathing with color. This is a very important skill that you can use for when you're feeling nervous or anxious or stressed at all ever. It's not just used for emergencies, but it also can be really helpful in emergencies. So what we're going to do is breathing with color. So to do that, you're going to breathe in slowly through your nose. And when you're doing that, you're thinking of a good color, a color that maybe makes you happy, gives you positive feelings. So like for me, example, my favorite color is red. So when I'm breathing in, I'm going to breathe in that red color. And by breathing in that red color, I'm breathing in those positive feelings, those positive emotions, not the negative ones. And then what I'm going to do afterwards is after you breathe in that positive color, you're going to breathe out that negative color. So you're kind of like cycling it out. So you're breathing out all of those anxieties and maybe the stress, and you're breathing in to help you relax, and breathing in kind of relaxation. So sorry about that. Gotta love animals. So I want you to pick a good color, a color that you really like, and breathe in that color slowly through your nose. And then you're going to pick a color maybe that you don't like, that you're not a fan of. Like for me, it's neon green, just kind of bright to me. So I would breathe in the red, a deep breath slowly through your nose, and then breathe out the neon green through your mouth. And as you can see, our little friend Pedro on there, he says that after just 5 or 6 breaths, you start to feel better and you can start to relax. So try it yourself and see. And like I said, this is something that's not only just used for emergencies, but maybe you're getting stressed out. Like I know in college when I was taking a big test, I used to get really stressed out. So I remembered this skill. So I sat there, I breathed in the good color, breathed out the bad color, and it took about 6 breaths. And then I started to feel more relaxed and calm. So it's a good thing to be able to do. Okay, so I'm gonna just take a second to answer some of the questions because we have a little bit of time. How old do you have to be to donate blood? I am not entirely sure. I will have to check on that. I work in disaster services, to be honest, so I don't work in the blood services, but I believe it's around 16 to 18. Would we do the same thing with a CO2 alarm? Yeah, so with a carbon monoxide alarm, you also want to make sure that you test those. You want to make sure that they're still working because sometimes they can get a little faulty too. So with both of those alarms, you want to make sure that they're working and that they're not maybe malfunctioning, maybe not going off wrong. And make sure also with the carbon monoxide alarm that you put it in the proper placement too, because with smoke alarms, we know they usually go, up high on the wall because that's just how they are. But with carbon monoxide alarms, they can kind of vary depending on who made the alarms. So is it safer to sleep with your door open or closed? Honestly, oops, sorry, it went down. I think it kind of just depends on the situation. If you have a smoke alarm that's in your room, then it's kind of doesn't really matter. And either way, it's going to kind of set off the smoke alarm. Like say, like if you have one outside in the hall that's like in between the bedrooms, then it's still going to go off and you can still hear it. But I'd say I know for me, I like sleeping with the door closed because then say if there was something like in the middle of the house, you can put the back of your hand to the door and feel if it's hot or not. So what would you do if you were stories up? So see, that's perfectly oh, okay. So what would you do if you were stories up? So this is why you want to go over that escape plan because it's very different. And kind of like the question that's underneath, how can you go out a window? You want to make sure that you go over this plan so you can figure that out. Because if you're on a high level, we do not want you jumping out of the window. Absolutely not. But there are certain things, like there are these escape ladders that you can hook onto the inside of your window and they go out the window and they're really strong and sturdy. So you can kind of climb down them. And those would be like a good thing to look into if you were stories up, because that would make it so that you can go out of that window. But you want to make sure that you talk to your grown-ups first about that, of course, and then see if that's the best course of action. So that kind of answers the other question too. How can you go out of a window? Do you have like one of those ladders? What if you live in an apartment or can only make one escape plan? See, so that's definitely important. So that's why you want to go over this with your grown-ups, because if you live in an apartment, it's going to be kind of a different situation. Where I know, like for me, I live in an apartment building. In my other apartment, I really only had one way to get out of my apartment without an escape ladder. But in my apartment now, I was moved. So right next to my window is actually the fire escape. So I would be able to just climb out my window and climb there. So what you could do is within an apartment is get that escape safety ladder. I'm not sure exactly where to get them, but that's something that could be really useful that you can be able to use to get out. And isn't the smoke just as dangerous as the fire? Yeah, it is just about as dangerous. The smoke, it can hurt your throat, it can give you a headache, make you feel a little bit dizzy, and it can make like your chest feel like a little bit tight. So that's why you want to make sure that you get low and go too. So what about a baby? I'm not sure about that part, but so say if I'm interpreting this correctly, you're asking if someone has a baby, then you want to make sure that you go over the escape plan, because then you're going to have those different considerations. You're going to need to be able to have like something, say like if you have to go down like the fire escape or like an escape ladder, then you want to make sure like you have I'm not sure what they're called, but like the things to hold the baby, like the backpack that you can put the baby in. So these are one of those things that you want to make sure you go over with your family, because they're different for everyone. Like I live on my own, so I'm not really gonna encounter that or have to deal with that, but I have pets, so I'd want to make sure that I have a plan for what to do with them. Wait, can you smell colors? Not actually smell colors, but it's just kind of something to help you visualize what you're doing and makes you feel better. Someone said 21. I think it's 18 to donate blood. I think it's around 16 to 18, because I know my boss's daughter just turned 18 and she donated blood. So I think it's somewhere around there. What does a CO2 alarm check for? So a CO2 alarm, what they check for is carbon monoxide. So that's kind of like say like you have a gas stove and you leave the gas on for a little bit, like you turn it on without turning like the actual fire on. What's coming out of that is like the gas and carbon monoxide. So those try to detect that, because carbon monoxide it's scentless, really. You can't smell it like smoke. You can't see it like smoke. You don't really know it's there until you start to feel a little dizzy or maybe get extra tired. So that's why it's very important to have one of those CO2 alarms. What happens if you have CO2 paintball canisters? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't run into those before. That's probably something that you wouldn't want to have inside your house. Maybe if you had like a garage, or if you could put them like in a shed outside, that would be more safe, because if they have CO2 in them, and something were to happen, we don't want them to kind of break inside the house. And someone said minimum age is 18. 17 would make sense. Yeah, around 16 to 18. I can look into that though and get back about that. How do you recommend getting out of the house during a fire from the second floor? So that would be where I'd recommend like seeing if you can get the fire escape ladder. And also another good thing that you can do is, say like if you have a bunch of toys in your room, or a sibling has some toys and you're trying to get out of the house, something happens, but you can't really get out of your room. What you can do is, I know this sounds crazy and only do this in emergency, but you can throw those toys outside, because if the fire truck shows up and there's a bunch of toys outside of someone's window on the floor, whether you're in an apartment building or not, that's a little suspicious. No one's just going to throw their toys on the ground outside. So you can do that to kind of alert everyone else. And then, can this work for everyone? I'm going to guess you're asking about the breathing with color. If so, yeah, it usually can work for everyone. Obviously, some people, they calm down in different ways, but this is a good general thing that everybody can use to calm down. What should you do if your pets are inside? See, so that's why you want to make the plan. You got to have the plan ahead of time, because I can't really tell you what to do for your household, because everyone has like different pets. Like I only have a cat and a guinea pig, but my parents at home, they have they have 5 dogs, a cat, a bird, they have chickens, ducks, like, so it's going to be different for everyone else. Where can you get a smoke alarm if you don't have one? That's a good question. So you can usually get them I've seen them at like Walmart and most hardware stores. And right now the program is on pause because of COVID, but normally you can also get them from us, the American Red Cross. So if you call an American Red Cross, like I said, right now the program's on pause just because of everything going on with COVID and just like those safety concerns. So but otherwise, usually you can call us and we can install up to 3 free smoke alarms, and they're the 10-year lithium battery ones too. So if you can't really manage, you're not really able to get them from like a store, then you can call us. And if you have a little time to wait, once a program gets up and running, then we can make sure and get them installed. So what if I'll answer a couple more and then we'll finish up the presentation and come to the end. There's a lot of good questions in here. I like this. So what if there's another person inside? Yeah, exactly. So you want to make sure that you go over this plan because it's different for everyone. I live on my own. I don't have to worry about that. My parents have my 2 younger brothers and then themselves. So you just want to make sure that you go over that and then figure that out and what to do, and go over this plan with the people in your household so that they know what to do. So that if they're inside at the same time as you and something were to happen, they know exactly what they need to do too. All right, so there's a lot of good questions in here. So I'm going to pause for a second and then I'll answer the rest of them towards the end. Okay, so we taught you how to do breathing with color. Now we're going to get into actually building your pillowcase. So with your pillowcase kit, you can literally use a pillowcase. That's usually what we do. You just use an old pillowcase, or maybe you get a new one from the store. You can like design it, color it, whatever you want. But so this is going to be the pillowcase that you're going to want to keep this by like your front door or your main exit, so that if something were to happen and you have the time and you're on your way out the front door and you just have to pick it up as you're walking, you can get it. But we want to make sure that you know if you have to leave immediately, if it's an immediate emergency, leave that pillowcase behind. This is so if you have a little bit of time and say like I have mine by my front door, so as I'm walking out the door I grab it. I don't have to stop, I don't have to go look for it, I don't have to look for the different supplies, anything like that. But if I had to leave really quickly and didn't even have time to grab it, you would want to get up and go, because we want to make sure that you're okay and that you're safe. That's the sorry. That's the biggest thing that we're worried about, is making sure that you are okay. So with your pillowcase, these are where you're going to want to have the necessary supplies. So you only really want necessities, because pillowcases, even the really long ones, they're a little too big, and even though they're a little big, they can't really hold everything too. And you also don't want to make it like really heavy and then it's hard to carry. You want it to be like as lightweight as possible so you can pick it up, throw it over your shoulder, and then you're out that front door. So with that, you want to make sure you get things like a little bottle of water. You don't want like a gallon of water, because that's a lot. You just want to make sure that you have enough so that, say like you have to go to like a shelter for a bit or stay outside for a while, you still have some stuff with you. You want to make sure you bring soap, like soap, deodorant, toothbrush, and toothpaste. Those I always say are very important, because my brothers growing up, they didn't really know what those were, and the house, it rank. So you just want to make sure that you don't rank afterwards too. So it's just those necessary supplies. You want to bring a flashlight, and make sure with that you bring the extra batteries for them too. You want to have a backup for your backup. You can bring a little toy, but once again, make sure it's kind of a little toy. You don't want like a huge stuffed bear, because you want it to be as small and lightweight as possible. Bring a change of clothes, a portable radio. That's a good thing. So then, say like if your phone or your grown-up's phone dies, then you can still kind of hear about what's going on through the radio. Paper and pen, in case you get bored, you want to start drawing, playing tic-tac-toe, or you got to write something down. A blanket in case it's cold out, a little first aid kit, which is really good, those extra batteries, and then the family photos too, in case you just want like a little picture to bring with you. And it's also good to have a special item there. Like I know for my pillowcase, I have this stuffed alpaca bear that he's really fluffy, but he's small. He's about this big. And so I put him in there because he kind of helps me calm down when I get upset or stressed out. So because he's small enough, he's my special item that I was able to put in there. So you can put something like that in there, or put, if your special item is say like a little coloring book with some crayons, put that in there. Just something to kind of help you calm down without weighing down your pillowcase too much. So, we've been talking about home fires and home fire safety for a bit. So now we're just going to touch on flood a little bit. And this is kind of a little bit important to go over because I know in upstate New York, we've had actually a couple floods up here. So it's a good thing that you want to be aware of so that if it were to happen, not saying it's going to, but if it were to happen, you'd be prepared for it. So the most important thing about floods is turn around, don't drown. We want to make sure that you are safe. So if you see a flood, you want to always find another route. If you see a body of water, like how in the little picture there, you see there's ducks in there. Maybe they couldn't see that before. Maybe there's some fish in there. There could be some salmon if the flood got big. And you really just don't want to take that chance. There could be some debris too. Maybe there's something gross in there. There could be a toilet backed up that went into the water. I would not want to be walking through that. So if you ever see water, a body of water like that, and you don't know how deep it is, then you always turn around, don't drown. Even think about sometimes when you're riding down the road with your grown-ups and you see a little pothole and it looks like a little one. And then you hit it and it's like a big doo-doo. And then you realize that was a huge pothole and you almost like messed up the tire of the car. You just never know how deep it is and anything like that. So you just always want to make sure that you're safe. Turn around, don't drown. And with that, what you also have to be careful of too is, uh, believe it or not, the water's actually pretty strong. Did you know that it only takes about 8 inches to be able to like pick up an adult and move them? And it only takes about 18 inches to pick up a car and move it, which is insane. Like that does not seem, it's a good amount of water, but it does not seem like it would be enough to do that. Water can sometimes be pretty strong. So once again, we just want to make sure you're safe. If you see something like that, like in the picture, make sure you turn around, don't drown. You can always find another route and always go somewhere else. And with that, you also want to make sure that you're careful of the type of flood it is, because there's a difference between a regular flood and then a flash flood. So with a regular flood, usually we have the warnings for them. You know, they say on the radio, there might be a flood tonight. But with flash floods, it seems like they actually are kind of the opposite. We usually don't really get much of a warning for them. It's usually kind of rare if we can get a warning because they just happen so quickly and all of a sudden they just kind of show up. So you want to make sure that with those two that you know the different types so that if say like there's a bunch of rain and say like you there's a big hill up top and then you live down here, you're going to want to be careful of that and careful of flash floods. So if the radio station doesn't say there's going to be a flood, but you know there's going to be a lot of rain that day, you want to make sure you're aware of like your surroundings because they can happen so quickly. And it's usually from situations like that where like it's a big hill up here and then the water comes down and then kind of settles down here and then kind of builds up. So you just want to make sure once again that you're aware of that flash floods, they usually happen suddenly. And if a situation like that were to happen, you want to be able to just get out and go, not really care about your pillowcase. I explained why. Okay, so now this is towards the end of the presentation. I know there was a lot of good questions, so I tried to save some time for that. I also sent to the principal the quiz. I can also figure out getting that to the rest of you, but these last few slides are just kind of going over, we just have a little quiz, kind of just to gauge and see if we taught you well and if we taught you good information. So I'll be able to get those out to you guys. And then if you can finish them sometime within the next couple of days, that would be amazing. So right now I'm going to go back to the questions. So if you have any more questions, you can put them in that question and answers, and I'll say them out loud right now. So what if there was a roof fire? Yeah, so exactly. So this is some of these questions, they're a little bit hard to answer because it depends on where you live and your situation. So that's something that you'd want to go, once again, go over with your grown-ups. I know for my parents' house, it's a 1 floor house. My best friend has a 3 floor house. So if they were on the 3rd floor and there was a roof fire, then they could go all the way down to the 1st floor and then get out through that way. But if it were my parents, they would just have to go out kind of the front door. So you just want to make sure that you go over that with the grown-ups in your house because it's different for every situation and it varies. So I can't really answer those with a direct, straightforward answer. So make sure that that's a question that you bring home to your grown-ups. What if there is a porch in front of your window? How would you be able to use a ladder? So that's a good question. So with that, you could see if sometimes I know I've only seen the ones with the ones that go hooked to the windows. But what you could do is you could get an actual ladder and in case something were to happen, have that already propped up against the porch. So if you can walk out like on that little porch and then there's that ladder that's already right there, then you can climb down through that through the regular ladder too. But that's just me guessing. Obviously, I don't know your exact situation. So make sure you bring that home to your grown-ups too and ask them about that. How would you explain an emergency plan to a child under 6? That's a really good question. I don't think I've been asked that one before. So with that is kind of like how I was describing it now. You just want to make sure that when you're explaining it to them, you say, sometimes like emergencies happen and we need to get out of the house fast. You could also kind of make it seem like a game. If it's someone that's like really young, they might not be able to understand it quite as much. So you could make it like a game, make up a name for it. Be like, all right, this is get out and stay out. So then you rehearse the game. You say, all right, for get out and stay out, what we need to do is we need to get up. We have this route through the house and we need to use this route to get outside and get to this tree and say like you could try to race them there. Use a situation, I mean, use a scenario like that, try to race them, be like, all right, we're gonna do get on our hands and knees and crawl out the door, and then we're gonna race to the tree outside. So it's kind of a way to explaining it. That's kind of a way to explain it to them without fully explaining it. But if you want to fully explain it with them, I'd say it depends on how much they really understand and are able to comprehend because you don't really want to scare them, but you want to make sure that they know what to do if something were to happen too. So like creating like a scenario, like a game where it has a specific name, then that's not fully explaining it to them, but they're going to be able to get out of the house fast if something were to happen. Are you supposed to grab anything before you leave during a fire? No, do not grab anything. If there's a fire in your house, you want to get up and go. Get out and stay out. Well, you want to get low and go. You want to get out and stay out. If you have that pillowcase by your front door and it's something where you're literally walking by, you do not have to stop at all and you can grab it as you go and that's not taking any less time and you're out under 2 minutes, then you can grab that. But if not, if you have to get out fast, you need to get out fast because your belongings, a lot of them usually can be replaced, but you guys are the most important thing. So we want to make sure that you're all safe. What happens if you are stuck? So that's a good question. So if you get stuck in the house, that's something like if you call 911, it depends on the scenario, like how you're stuck, what's kind of got you stuck. But I saw, oh, so you just asked it twice. But usually, so that's when you would call 911 and like usually tell the firefighter that you're stuck. If you're stuck in your room, then it's something like where you can't say like you don't have that fire escape ladder and your door is blocked. That's where you could grab those toys or grab random objects and throw them out the window. I mean, throw pillows out your window, throw blankets. Because if people see that, they're going to know that something's up. No one just throws their stuff on the floor outside for no reason. So you could do something like that, or when you call 911, let them know, hey, I'm in this room, I'm stuck here. So then they know to go directly to you. What about electrical fires? So yeah, so with electrical fires, it's kind of the same scenario. You still want to make sure that you get low and go. Even though they're electrical, they can usually cause smoke too. So just make sure with the electrical ones that you're not touching any of the wires. Like say like there's a downed wire outside, then you want to make sure that you stay away from those and stay away from like your electronics. and just make sure that you get out of the house fast. If there is something like a pet readily available when you're leaving the house, is it safe to grab them? So that it really depends. If it's something like it's right by your front door, you can pick it up and go as you're going out. You have the time, the fire's not right behind you, and you're safe, then maybe, but we always just you want to be safe. So you what you would do is you would try to get out of the house fast, because I know my pets, they might be sitting by the door. My cat will sit by the door, and then as soon as I walk over to her, she bolts. It's like a game to her. So if it's something like that, then you're not going to want to chase them down. You want to make sure that you're safe, because as long as you're safe, you can go outside and talk to the firefighter and say, hey, I have this animal inside. They're in this room, or they just ran off here. Can you please go help them? Can you please go save them? Because that's their job. Their job is to put out the fire and then try to make sure that they can get everyone inside out safe. And that includes animals. So usually I just leave it up to the firefighter, because we want to make sure that you can get out, because you're not really trained to respond to fires like firefighters are. You don't have all that heavy, big gear they got. So what if you get trapped in a room without windows? So yeah, that's something that you want to make sure that you go over. And with that, yeah, because it's going to be different if there's a different way that you can get out, if there's only the door. But I'd say mostly just make sure that you call 911. If you have a phone in there, make sure you call 911 and you let them know. Or if you hear the firefighters pull up, what you can also do is, usually yelling kind of tires you out for a bit. So you can get a whistle. So if you're in the room, you blow that whistle and they're going to hear that. Or you can also, if there's like wood or hard surface around you, you can knock on that, you can kick that, make as much noise as possible without tiring and like dehydrating yourself. And then when they go inside, they're going to be checking those rooms to see if anybody's in there. And they're going to hear that. They're going to hear that pounding, or they're going to hear that whistle. And then they're going to know that you're inside and you need help. Do you take a coat or anything if it is cold? So no, so once again, if you're going to take anything, it should only be if it's right by the front door, you have time, you're safe, the fire's not right behind you, and you can grab it and go and keep going. But otherwise, you don't want to do that, because sometimes, like when the Red Cross, like when we help with fires, if we show up to a fire scene, we can actually bring blankets for people too. So then you can use it to wrap up or feel warm. Usually, I believe ambulances, they have emergency blankets too, but you want to make sure that even if it's cold, at least you're outside and you're safe. Is there a type of alarm for a person who is deaf? Yes, there is actually a really cool alarm. I believe it's called a bed shaker. I've actually set one up before. So for someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, the bed shaker it is what you do is, there's like this box part. It kind of looks like an alarm clock. So you put that right by the bed, and then there's a cord that's attached to this little like circle object, and that goes underneath the mattress on the bed. I know it's kind of, sorry, I'm kind of not explaining it very well, but so that goes under the bed. So then when that alarm goes off, it's going to shake the entire bed. And then that light on the alarm clock is also going to go off too. And it's going to start yelling too. It's going to go fire, fire, because they may not be able to hear that part, but other people in the house will be able to do that. And those, they usually get hooked up to the alarms in your house. So when those regular alarms are going off, that bed shaker is going to go off too. So if you do have someone who's deaf or hard of hearing in your house, that's a really good alarm to look into. What should you do if you're trapped in a room and there's fire outside of it? So that's kind of like, yeah, so it just kind of depends on the situation, if you can get out the window safely, or not. And if not, then kind of screaming and making sure that people can just hear you and that they know that you're in there. Or if you have if you have a phone, and call 911, that kind of stuff. Does a CO2 alarm only check for carbon dioxide, or does it detect smoke too? No, so a carbon monoxide alarm, they're specifically designed for carbon monoxide, because carbon monoxide is a little different than smoke, because regular smoke, we can see it, we can smell it, But with carbon monoxide, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you don't notice it's there unless you have an alarm or you start to feel the symptoms. How do you know if your smoke alarm isn't working? So if you go to test that alarm and it doesn't work, that's usually there's a little button on it that says test, and then you press it and it'll sound like it's going off. So that's how one way you would know that it's not working. Or if, say, like we usually can tell they're a little bit faulty if nothing's happening, there's no smoke, and just randomly throughout the day, like you hear that beeping from it, that usually means that something's kind of out. Sorry, something's kind of wrong with the alarm. So one of those two ways, yeah. Or if the alarm like never works, say like you have an alarm in the kitchen, which we don't suggest, but just for the scenario, you have an alarm in the kitchen and then it doesn't go off when there's a bunch of smoke, then you're gonna know it's not working. So that's why you want to test it. So then test it every month to see if it's working or not. What if we want to put it out ourselves when the fire starts? No, do not do that. Your safety is most important consideration. If it's something like a small fire that can be contained, that's going to be up to your grown-ups and the fire extinguisher to see if that's something that's possible. But even in that situation, you do not want to try to mess with the fire, because you could think that maybe it's just one type of fire, but like there's 3 different types of fires. There's ones with like cloth and paper, there's one with like electrical, there's one with like kitchen grease, and only one of those can be put out with water. The other ones need a fire extinguisher. So that's something that you don't want to try to do on your own. The firefighters, that's their job. Can you add a comfort item in the pillowcase? Like you have a comfort blanket? Yeah, so that's like the little special item that you would add into there. That would be good. Wouldn't you also want money? Yes, that's, I don't know why it's not in this one. We have it in the Go Kit. Yeah, money would be a good thing to add into there just in case. So what if there are no other ways to, okay. Well, actually, so I do see that it's 11:30. So these are all really great questions. If you really want to make sure that you get your questions answered, you can always send it to, I'm not sure be okay sending it to Jessica or not, but I can try to figure out getting the responses for these questions.
Yeah, boys and girls, you can certainly email me a question if you have some really important questions for Mr. Hellinger, and I will relay them to him and get back to you. I also have Mr. Taylor here.
So everybody, I want you to, that was a fantastic presentation by Mr. Hellinger. And I really appreciate him giving us his time and effort to do that. I do want to tell you that there was a lot of good information shared. So on Thursday and Friday, if you are interested in participating in the Principals Challenge, the Principals Challenge is going to be write down 3 things, 3 things that you learned in this presentation and put it in the box outside the office for a chance for you and some friends to win lunch in the cafeteria. So that's going to be the Principals Challenge for the next couple days. 3 things that you learned in this presentation. And if you are a virtual student and you're watching this presentation, if you want to email me 3 things, I will put your name in for a chance to win some special prizes in the office that we will figure out how to get to you. So virtual students, you are included in the Principals Challenge as well. 3 things that you learned from today's presentation, write them down, put them in the box. If you're a virtual student, email me, and I'll put your name in for a chance to win.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Hellinger, for your presentation today. It was excellent. All right. Let me know if you guys have any questions for Mr. Hellinger, and I will forward them along to him and we'll get your response to you. Okay.
Thank you everyone for attending and for all of your great, amazing questions. Yeah, I'll make sure I can get those answers back if you email her, and thank you everyone.